Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Welcome to the new Ronin Reviews.
Ooh, look at this shiny little piece that we get to break open.
We're gonna break it. Well, it's already broke open. We played it. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Adam Ronin, joined by my illustrious combo of the TJ Nature.
That is me, TJ Combo. Here I am.
What are we reviewing today?
Today we have a very special review, one that we are both incredibly excited about, and we have the PlayStation VR.
Because we've been talking about it for months now.
We were like the first people in the world to be excited about VR.
Yep.
Like we were way ahead of the ship. And let's face it, it's getting a little cold out. So I think you're gonna start spending a little more time indoor gaming, right?
I mean, we want it to be cold out, but have notice it was 80 degrees in Colorado today. So first thing to note, guys, is there are plenty of PlayStation VR reviews out there. A lot of the bigger names have had it for weeks now. You can find those, but they just, you know us, you love us because of our personalities, and
you came to your
bros.
Trusted source, not the one who just got the cool unit for free and super early.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah, we paid a lot of money for it.
We did. And this is business expense.
But we'll talk about that. Yeah.
We will talk about price. But first thing to notice is Ronin Reviews is a bit different now. We are going to start, we have a very elaborate scoring system, so everything will have a finalized score from myself, from TJ Combo, and from producer Gordy. And then there will be an average company score that will, from the three of those.
Assuming the product warranted. Sometimes we'll do a very small product where we're not going to give it a very full detailed thing. We'll tell you about it. This needs a breakdown.
It sure does. Let's start with the most important thing about a VR headset is how does it feel on your face? Let's talk about comfort.
You're going to be wearing this baby for a good period of time. One of the first experiences I did was the Batman experience, which is going to take you maybe 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah, depending on how deep you want to go with it.
Yeah, but I feel like that would probably be like an entry-level sit-down session with it, right?
Or stand-up if you want.
Or stand-up, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're playing something that is going to take maybe 4 or 5 hours, there could be some potential risk. And I mentioned this where sometimes if I have like headphones that like cramp a little bit and then I'll take them off, like they'll make my ears hurt.
Yeah.
So after my first sit-down with this, I pulled this baby off and I had none of those issues.
Right. And that also could be kind of to say what headphones you use, because PlayStation VR is compatible with any wired headset that you want to use. So you plug it in.
You could do earbuds, or you could do
this
like
bad boy here.
The big earmuff style if you wanted to.
It actually comes with a pair of earbuds with it. I haven't tried them, so I just use actually my Xbox headset on it because I like to make things weird.
Yeah.
And it's actually been really nice, very comfortable, like he said, and you can wear it for long periods of time. Now, if you are uninitiated, uninformed, there are 3 big names in VR right now. PlayStation VR, there's the Oculus Rift, and the HTC Vive. In terms of comfort, we've tried the Oculus Rift, Gordy and I, Timmy hasn't yet. This, in our testing, knocks it out of the park. It's super comfortable.
Right. I think probably one of the big fears that you would think of is you would imagine that this piece is very heavy and is going to like pull your head down. So like I've imagined like I don't want to wear that and I start to either get gigantic neck muscles or it's going to like weigh me down. They did an incredible job of having like large surface area across the top as well as a comfy surface area on the back that distributes the weight evenly. So when this guy is on your head, I mean it's no different than like a hat basically. I mean it feels like you can move around totally free without having any kind of feeling of being weighed down or anything like that.
And what's interesting about it is I can't remember the exact poundage. I think it's like 1.5 pounds, 1.7 pounds maybe, but this is the heaviest of all 3 VR units, but the most comfortable because the weight distribution is different. So on the other headsets, you just have the HMD on the front and straps.
They do the strap that comes around it,
This has a big plastic chunk back here that distributes a lot of the weight. Guys, it's super comfortable. And, you just, if you're wearing glasses with it, indistinguishable. It's super comfortable to wear glasses and HMD for hours at a time, and it's totally cool.
Now, for me personally, I'm not gonna say like I enjoyed wearing it, right? I'm not gonna be like I want to wear it all the time, but there was no discomfort when I did. However, our producer Gordy felt a little bit different about that. He had a few moments where he didn't quite enjoy wearing it as much as these 2 guys here did.
That's true. It's obviously a case of everybody's got different size heads.
Right.
So whereas it's comfortable on us because we have regular people size heads, Gordy has a weird Gordy size head.
That big.
Yeah,
It's gigantic. But no, there could be some issues depending just on facial structure or things that you have going on, where maybe there could be some pinching across the bridge of the nose. I didn't have anything like that, but I could feel it, like if it would slip down at all, I could feel it kind of push down right here. So I just kind of have to like readjust it. It's incredibly adjustable. That's one of the best things, is that like once you set the size of it, it does a great job of not slipping and shifting around your head, even with all of the movement and stuff that you're going to be doing when playing.
Yep. And we had a bunch of friends over. We had the Bone come over, Boss Metal Bone. He tried it on, and he's got a pretty big head and snug on him, and he wore his glasses with it, loved it. We had our buddy Ben come over and play it.
Yeah.
He never has any experience with any virtual reality. He loved it. So guys, comfort level is off the chart. That's great, and you should feel no reservations about, is it going to fit on my head right? Because it probably will, and if it doesn't, adjust it to your liking.
Exactly.
Now there's two sides of the comfort spectrum here. So there's the physical HMD comfort on your head, but
like sitting there, how it rests.
The key to virtual reality is how does it interact with your eyes? What is the comfort level of the visuals to your eyes? Did you have any issues?
So if I go to a 3D movie, and this is probably the best example I could give you at home if you haven't played with virtual reality, is the second I sit down at a 3D movie and I put the glasses on, I always have like this weird moment where maybe it's 30 seconds to a minute where things have to like magic eye relax for me. They sync up and then I'm like, okay, cool, now I'm great for that remainder of the movie. I had the exact same experience with this. It was the first game that we plugged in. It took me a second where I was like, I'm blurry. Okay, now I'm locked in.
Right.
I could see that maybe that could potentially cause eye strain for somebody if they have like an issue with 3D movies. I don't have that issue. It just takes me a second to adjust to that.
Right.
So in terms of like that kind of comfort, I didn't have any issues. No eye strain. I was able to move around, freely within an environment and feel totally submerged.
Of course. I didn't have many issues either, except for one evening. So I alternate between wearing glasses and contacts, and sometimes when I wear contacts, bright lights affect it, where it's just kind of like when you leave the eye doctor and you're like, a little
squinty out of it.
It happens very rarely, but sometimes light affects it. I had one instance where I was playing with contacts in, and I was playing rigs, and for some reason, just the brightness, I was like, kind of got a little weird. My eyes started watering, and I had to kind of just sit and readjust and wait for them to re-eye. And then it was fine. But in terms of the wise visual comfort, it was fine. Now we can talk about other kinds of comfort, because this is a pretty big issue. A lot of people are experiencing motion sickness because
very much so. Yeah.
This is a virtual reality. So some things are, different than real life.
Right.
You're standing on a cliff. You're driving a car. You're doing things. So if you experience motion sickness, odds are you will experience motion sickness with the virtual reality. Gordy has some games he can't play on it, some motion sickness instances that he's had. I've had none because I don't suffer from it.
Right. So for me personally, I don't really have issues with motion sickness. But for example, in Valkyrie, your plane's like turning and you're looking up over your shoulder. I very much felt like the same description they'll give you like on a roller coaster of your stomach turning, or like if you were a pilot in a plane that's hitting like a backflip, you're gonna feel that little rumble. Where I was approaching edges of things, I have a fear of heights. Right? So like I was playing Batman, and I'm Batman. I'm supposed to be like, all confident up on the edge, and I'm like, I'm getting vertigo.
Not to help that your buddy, as soon as you started looking over the edge, I went up behind him and I was like,
and like my whole body was like, no, don't fall to your death. But that was cool. Like I gave it bonus points for me because it didn't make me sick. It actually made me realize like this actually is a virtual reality experience. Like my brain thinks that I'm standing on the edge of a skyscraper and there's a risk that I'm going to fall.
Yeah.
My brain thinks that I'm in a spaceship that's pulling this like 3G turn or something like that. So it was cool for me, but if you have problems with motion sickness, there might be moments where you're gonna be like, oh god. So if they ever put out Boat Simulator, it's over.
Yeah. That's actually a good point. But now let's talk about arguably the most important part if you're going to buy the PlayStation VR is how much does it cost? What's the dinero, huh? There's a lot of, it's interesting because this is expensive. This is for all intents and purposes, this is a premium product.
This is a premium product, absolutely. So this is not necessarily like your average gaming peripheral that's going to cost you $50 or $60. If you want to get into an actual virtual reality experience, it's going to be at least $399 US.
Yep.
And it's something we talked about is you have to have these old, outdated motion controls here.
Yep.
You also have to have a PlayStation camera. I already have one, and I could probably go to GameStop and pick these up for dirt cheap, I would imagine.
Nope. You can't. So if you can find them
Why
used,
not?
Let me tell you. If you can find them used, yes, you can get them dirt cheap. But The problem with these is these are 6-year-old technology, and the motion controllers from 6 years ago have very bad batteries. So if you find them used from then, odds are the batteries are shot.
Yeah.
The problem with that is they're selling them brand new now for the pair for $99.99 US dollars.
And I wonder why they did that price hike out of nowhere.
I don't know, Sony, what's cracking, dog?
What are you guys thinking about that? So basically, unless you already have these and you already have a PlayStation camera, the only way to get this experience is to then get their deluxe package, which is $499.
Yep, and that's what I got, because I didn't have a camera or these stupid little things.
Right.
Now, you know, I don't know exact figures, but I probably spent, you know, $1,000. So I'll write it off as a business expense. It's fine. But you know, I wanted that experience. I'm a huge supporter of VR. It is what it is.
Now let's talk about that, because that number sounds scary to a lot of gamers. That's much more than what you probably spent on your console by itself out of the gate. That's much more than you spent on any other peripheral that you've ever purchased. But this is, like we said, it's a premium product. But for VR specifically, if we stack it up against its competitors, it's actually a really great value. Because if we were to look into, say, an Oculus, how much would that cost me to get into?
Well, if you were going to get into the Oculus Rift, just the Rift alone is $599. Now, on December 6th, they're launching their version of the touch controller, which is much better than these.
Right.
Those standalone are $199. So already you are at $800 just for the package of the Rift alone, but you also have to have a pretty beefy PC to run it.
Right.
So you're looking at probably $2,000, almost $3,000 to be able to up and running on a Rift. Now, that is just to say, at the Oculus keynote that they just had a couple weeks ago, they did minimize the specs needed so you can get into it with a cheaper PC, but still very expensive now. And that's not even talking about the HTC Vive, which a lot of people say is the cream of the crop of the VRs because it's got the room camera system. You're tracked everywhere. Four cameras. Their wands, their motion controllers are included in the bundle. So that's $800 out of the gate to get in, not including your PC.
Right.
So the PlayStation VR is, for all intents and purposes, the cheapest way to get into consumer VR.
While it is a lot, it is a big purchase out of the gate. First off, you don't have to buy all of the games right off the bat. You could get, and just the demo package actually comes with a really cool experience that you can get into this, play with it, understand, okay, I see what the future is going to bring. Yeah,
and there is a lot of free content that they give you right out of the gate. So the demo disc, if you're in the United States, comes with 18 different demo games that are...
18?
Oh my God! Kevin McAllister, what? And there is just tons of other experiences that are free to download. That's super cool. And some of the games aren't very expensive, like Batman, which, you know, in our opinion, is the quintessential experience for PSVR, is only $20. So, you know, bada boom, bada bing.
Not bad at all.
Yeah. So now, PS4, top name console. What do you think about the visuals and the fidelity and resolution of the gaming in the HMD?
Right, so everybody right now in the gaming industry is trying to push as far as they can in terms of visuals, right? PCs have always been the top, and now we've got Microsoft is pushing towards 4K. PS4 has taken a different approach with their HDR. You know, with your own personal monitor at home that you might use for gaming, you probably have something that's incredibly high def. For TVs, everybody's trying to go towards 4K. So people really want the most crisp experience they can possibly obtain. They want the most textures, they want the most frames per second. Whatever the bigger number is everybody wants. This is not near that yet.
Not yet. And it's actually, I guess depending on your preferences, it could be a jarring experience when you first put it on and be like, wow, this kind of looks like crap in a way. It's a 1080 screen right up to your face. If you've ever tried the Google Cardboard, you have a decent frame of reference there because you're putting the phone screen up to your face. Very similar to that, but not quite on such a lower scale.
Right. I very much, for, you know, the Google Cardboard's probably the most accessible that a lot of you have maybe played with at home currently.
Because it's free.
Exactly. Yeah. So you've got a phone in your pocket, you plugged in some cardboard, and you're like, okay, this is, you know, this is what the ocean looks like. This is really cool. But it was more of like a 720 low def experience. This is just a little bit ahead of that in some regards. And it wasn't for every game, but some games you could see were definitely pushing. I'd like to use movies as the standard for this one. We went into Hulu and I started watching the new James Bond, and it felt maybe a little more on the 720 side than the 1080. So it was crisp. It didn't have the like the motion blur or anything that you would see if you were watching like an old projector TV, but it wasn't quite up to par with like my TV or my monitor at home.
Right. So it's actually, on a more technical side, it's kind of it's a feat to get your games running for virtual reality. So a lot of games on your console run at 30 frames per second, so on and so forth. These games have to be running at 90 frames per second or a simulated version of 90 frames per second. So they can have 60 frames that they simulate to look like 90 frames to be able to get the lifelike motion. And that's hard to do. So like Drive Club VR is probably, in my experience of everything I've tried, looks the worst of all the games. Like the textures are really bad. It looks like a PS2 game because Drive Club by itself only runs 30 frames per second. So to be able to transfer that, they had to cut a lot of corners to get it to run perfectly in VR. And a lot of these games are still struggling to kind of fit those needs.
Right, and you're going to lose your textures. You're going to lose, some of the other motion things that occur within a game in order to get that kind of a frame rate out of it. My experience personally, some issues I had were in Batman, for example, you can, you bend down, you use your controller and you pick up like cards and you can read them, you can turn them over. So it's just like holding this and looking at it. They were very blurry. I've got perfect vision, always had 20/20 vision, and I was like doing like the glasses squint to try and read things, and I was like, this is very blurry. But then there'd be other moments where they would have like a character, I'm literally this close to the Joker's face, and you could see all of the facial texturing perfect.
Yep.
So I think those things will eventually be honed in with precision once they have a better grasp of the actual technology that they're working with and how to develop for it. But there are going to be some times where you're like, this is kind of blurry. This is not what I was hoping for.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of go back a step real quick because I compared it to the Google Cardboard, and which is a virtual reality kind of introduction thing. The difference between the Google Cardboard in terms of how virtual reality plays out is the Google Cardboard is a 360 video experience, right? There's 360 video everywhere you look, and that's super cool. Real virtual reality is that plus 3D, like things are coming at you. Things are coming, you can look at things up close. You can see it like I'm seeing this now, is how things are in virtual reality. It's a reality. So that's the huge difference is people are like, oh, I tried the Cardboard, it wasn't impressive. It's not impressive because you're just looking around in a 360 space, whereas virtual reality is you're there looking at it. But let's get into some of we can kind of talk about a couple different things here. So launch content and some of the extraneous features that would be in the VR. So we've got gaming is obviously the first and foremost for PlayStation VR. There's extra features. So let's talk about what do you think about the offering of launch content that they had that came out with it, plus non-gaming experiences that you can do.
Personally, blown away.
Great.
Like seriously blown away by launch content. Like we said, I mean this isn't 5 individual games. I mean there's different
there's
things
5 games just on
there's
here.
5 on that. Like Batman, for those of you who have played the Batman series from Rocksteady, this was developed specifically for this, and basically you are legitimately in that game 100%, right? So this was something that they had to be very dedicated to create. Other experiences, maybe like rigs, those are going to be not quite as mind-blowing for you right off the bat, but it's there if you want to play sports, if you want to see how that would transfer over.
This is probably the best, this and Battlezone are probably the best examples of a multiplayer experience because of their full-fledged modes where you can play with other people online if they've got the VR headset. So the launch content was great because this right here is equivalent to what the PS4 launched with by itself. This is a fraction of what the PSVR launched with.
And NAC's not included. Sorry, guys.
And so, gaming aside, games are aplenty. I think they launched with 50 plus titles maybe, and there's just more pouring out every week.
Right, and I legitimately say that every single thing I played, no matter how small of an experience, wowed me in some way or another.
Absolutely.
Including the one that we played yesterday that was directly from PlayStation, which uses their little robots, is like a 3D platformer. So to be in that atmosphere after spending so many years of, playing it on your NES, where you're just and to finally be there, looking around.
It was a Super Mario 64 experience. Whereas you're like, this is the future.
But you are Mario, not a person looking at Mario, which is completely mind-blowing.
Yeah, and fun fact is that costs nothing. That's totally free to download if you wanted to try that out. It's basically a tech demo, but it's really cool. So extra features, there's something called cinematic mode. So if you wanted to play something 2D like Street Fighter V, we tried this out. This is not a game built for VR, so if you play something like that, you can. It displays in a huge cinematic screen that basically, if you do it on the large size, it looks like you're just looking at an IMAX screen. It's very big in a black void.
3 different sizes that you can choose from. Like you said, you could have an IMAX, you could have a normal movie theater, or you could do still a very large TV.
Yeah,
even.
And so you can play your 2D games on this. And we had some mixed experiences with this. This works, and it works well. Maybe not for a competitive side like Street Fighter, FGC. you're not going to replace your monitor and play Fight Stick in this. It's just
I would actually sternly advise against that.
Yeah,
you will lose a lot.
Yeah, it's basically like the equivalent of maybe playing on a CRTV, like in terms of like input lag and stuff, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. So in terms of like input lag, you know, for you FGC guys out there, I felt very much like this was just like playing more on like a regular TV.
Yeah.
I play on a monitor that has zero lag. That's always my goal, is to try and bring, you know, all that input response to zero. This just has a little bit. In fact, in our first experience with it, it was substantial due to some downloading that was going on in the background. So that's something that's very common with PlayStation, right? You have all your other games that are trying to do their updates, so things are going to be working. Street Fighter was doing a small update. We tried to play, and it was near unplayable.
It was totally unplayable. We're talking like 2 to 3, 4, 5 second long freezes before it would continue. So if you have something downloading in the background, odds are some games aren't going to work properly at all. Like we tried to load up Injustice just to try that out, and that wouldn't even load while something was downloading.
Literally, we just got the main loading screen, and nothing ever changed. Wouldn't go anywhere from that point
but
on,
when we had no downloads, when we had no
downloads
downloads going on, everything worked smooth. It was fine. Watching movies, like Hulu's got a VR experience now, so you can watch Hulu in numerous different experiences. The movie theater mode, watch it on the beach, or
watch from your apartment, all kinds of different things.
And it looks really cool, and it has the 3D audio, so you feel like you're watching it in a movie theater.
Right.
And I think it's a really cool experience.
Right. So it's kind of we had some mixed feelings, I think, on the bonus features that came with this, because from a competitive standpoint, if I'm going to play like Street Fighter, or maybe you play competitive Call of Duty or Gears or something along those lines, you're not going to be using this for your competitive gaming. If I'm going to play a game that's just beautiful and, you know, graphically pushes the boundaries like Uncharted, I'm also not going to use this, because I still want to experience Uncharted at, you know, what they intended it to be seen as. So you're probably going to use this for more of like a casual middle ground for gaming. But that being said, in terms of watching like a movie on it, I very much felt like I was just in a movie theater by myself. I was incredibly relaxed. I had perfect sound. You know, I kind of just wanted to kick up my feet and enjoy the experience on a large screen. And I was like, man, this is really cool. Like, I kind of just want to finish watching the movie so you guys can get on out of here.
So let's move on to we're gushing about it. So, you know, so far we love the product. Let's talk about maybe what some of the things that aren't so good about the product. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about durability and just the tracking itself. So first of all, the durability of the headset is very solid. Like, it's a well-made product. Now, the most fragile thing about it, and they don't tell you this, but the lenses that are included with the PSVR, and this actually goes with all VR
across the board. This is like important. If you take anything from this video, listen to this part.
So your lenses are incredibly fragile. You have to use a microfiber cloth, dry, no moisture, no nothing. Has to be a microfiber cloth to clean the lenses. If you use like a Kleenex, that's basically just like chopped wood.
But you wear glasses, right? Couldn't you just use your glasses cleaning kit and your glasses cleaning spray?
Sure could, and it will create a film over it that will ruin your lenses. The second thing is direct sunlight in the lens will instantly sear in a burn into the lenses that will ruin your unit completely.
They're gremlins. I mean, like, you know, you can't feed them after midnight. You can't get sunlight on them. You can't splash water on them. They're very sensitive, and that's something that I was unaware of, because one of my big factors is I do have children at home, right? So I would think like, man, this would be really cool to sit down and play with my little guy. He could, you know, get into that experience as well. But then you start to become very nervous about what if they were to even just take it off of the stand that blocks the sunlight currently, and they just set it down. Or what if you buy it for, you know, a 13-year-old kid gets it for Christmas this year, and mom goes into his room and shifts it towards the light while she's cleaning up everything.
And the sun shines right on it, psh, ruined.
Fried.
Now that said, you do get, no matter where you purchase it, you get a year warranty from Sony, so that they might, you know, if that happens, they might work with you on something. And of course, you can purchase warranties extraneously from your retailer. But it's
you didn't spend enough money when you bought this at Best Buy, and they're like, do you want the $89.99 an extended warranty replacement program if anything goes wrong? And you're like, no. But
you actually might, because it's super scary to own this, because it's a very expensive, exciting piece of tech that can be very easily ruined. So that kind of is a negative, because if you got kids, or if you're in a, you know, scary location with sunlight shining right in, you could have a very damaged unit very easily, and that sucks. And
it's gone forever at that point. There's no coming back from that.
And then you got to spend another $500 to buy a new one.
So in terms of the quality of the build itself, I think it's fantastic. You know, we were playing with it, and we both were kind of confident that like if we drop this thing, it's probably going to live.
Which we almost just experienced.
No, we almost did
before we
earlier.
shot.
Yeah, I had a nice little catch there myself. But that being said, it's the internal tech that is still a little bit behind, and this is just going to be VR as a whole. I guarantee that 2 years from now, this will not be any kind of risk whatsoever. I bet they'll have it all figured out, and I think smashing them like Gorilla Glass.
Yeah, exactly. Once we get into PSVR 2, when they eventually probably go wireless, you won't have the risk of cords tugging on it and falling off your face. It's going to be fine.
Absolutely.
So durability's fine, but let's get into the meat and potatoes. The most important thing when you're in a VR experience, you want to be tracked perfectly because your movements need to be one-to-one. This is far beyond something like Microsoft Kinect, where it's like you move your hand and then like a split second later, then it moves. This ideally should be when second you twitch your fingers, the fingers are twitching.
Do this, it does that with you, right? I mean, you want that whole Lawnmower Man experience.
Yep, and it generally works pretty well. Now, there's two sides of the tail here. So there are numerous lights on the HMD headset here that are 360. There's some back here, there's some on the side, some on the front.
And those are spotted by the PlayStation camera, so you have to remain in view of the camera at all times in order for that to work.
Right.
So you couldn't like get up and walk away and expect it to still continue tracking. That being said, if you were to rotate and maybe certain blocks that light, it's kind of the same issue. So the tracking for the headset itself is going to be different than how it's tracked to this, just slightly, because it does have sensors on the back.
And I think generally in my experience, the tracking on the headset's been pretty good.
I thought it was excellent. I mean, when you're looking around, you're like, okay, this is fantastic. And even when you turn away from the camera, because it has sensors on the back, it still captures that okay.
Yeah. So you can look 360s and it will track you just fine.
Perfect the whole way. The first time I experienced an issue, however, was in Batman. There's the Riddler trophies, and sometimes you have to look to places that aren't common to see where those things exist. So everything is happening in front of me that I decided this is a good opportunity to look around. And when I look around, the vision of this is blocked by my body to the camera. So I was trying to utilize a tool, and I was like, why can I not use the things on my bat belt? And it's because the camera can't see these.
Yep.
So that can be a bit of an issue in terms of like the hand tracking and how it's actually going to register like quick movements, like throwing a battering, for example. So if you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get this and I'll play Madden eventually next year, and I bet you I drop back and I throw a football perfectly, it might not be as dead on as you think.
Yeah.
With the hand controls.
So like I said, the two sides, the tracking here is great. The tracking for these, maybe not so much. Like here, the camera sees me, it's tracking me, and then when I turn here, it sees the back of my head, but it doesn't see this anymore because it's old technology. They repurposed PS3 failed product. We're like, oh, we can actually use that. Maybe sell some more of these. They probably got a warehouse full of these and they wanted to get rid of them. They really should have maybe come up with something a little different, or to combat that, if they were going to use these, a second camera maybe set up behind you would have fixed that. So I'm hoping that's something they'll introduce in the future, extra cameras and stuff.
So tracking overall definitely has some pluses and some minuses to it, right?
Absolutely.
So the unit itself, new technology, works great. These guys,
old
not
technology.
So much. They work like old technology. One other thing to factor in is the environment in which you are using this, right? You definitely want to have a safe environment. You're not going to trip over the cat, the dog, and start Godzillaing everything.
Step on your baby.
But there have been also reports that environmental factors can factor into the tracking itself. Like, let's say I have a very shiny picture frame or something behind me, or a poster.
Absolutely.
This could bounce off that picks up on the camera. Tracking is going to get really wonky until you block it or it goes
let me
away.
tell you, a wonky tracking will lead you to severe disorientation or motion sickness, like we were talking about earlier. So, like I had some tracking issues at one point. I don't know what was happening, but I was playing Job Simulator. Very immersive. You feel like you're working in a cubicle, and something happened with my tracking, and it just started pushing me in and out, like towards the cubicle, and I felt like I was just wobbling back and forth, and I was like, "Stop it!"
And, like you just rip it off, or you're gonna fall over.
So that's something to keep in mind. You want to have space is an issue with this. You need to have like a decently perfect environment. You don't want extra things shining on it, sunlight coming right in, messing up, too bright, too dark, so many problems. You just have to have right lighting, the right environment, and that could be, cumbersome for some people.
So let's talk about that actually with this setup. So let's say you purchase PlayStation, you go home, you set it up in your TV console, and then you play from your couch, or you play from your computer desk or whatever. There's not really a whole lot to it, right? It's just some basic plugins and stuff. What does it take for this guy to actually operate in my house?
So you're going to pick it up from the store, you're going to get home. It's going to come with a pretty large manual that will detail from steps. Two things. this is just out of control with the cables. Like there's cables running all over the place. You have a second breakaway box that plugs into your PlayStation that does various processing duties and things.
So this guy's gonna run down your chest while you're playing.
That's gonna run down your chest into another thing.
But you're also wearing headphones. Those are also gonna run down, possibly even the other side.
Yep. You've got cables running into your PlayStation. You've got 2 HDMI cables running into the back of the TV, into the back of the whatever. You've got other cables going all over. But so many cables, so it's very ugly in your setup, in your entertainment system. It's not a pretty setup.
There are some how-to videos I've seen on ways to optimize that and to try and hide it.
Yeah.
Because that's everybody's goal these days. Is like, how can I make it look
minimalistic look?
Like I want to look like I have no cables whatsoever. And then this guy rolls in the door and there's just
and he's like
straps.
It's like Oprah with cables, and you get cables, and you get cables. So yeah, the cables are problematic, but it's very easy to set up and play. It's like a 5-step process. You plug in where they say to be plugged in. They're all labeled, cables 1, 2, 3, and 4. Shows you where to plug in. Guys, from getting it home, out of the box, plugging in and play, you're up and running in about 10 minutes. And it's super easy to do. And, you don't have to download drivers like you would with the Rift or the Vive.
I have a question.
Oh, what's up? Yes, TJ Combo.
Let's say I live in like a small studio apartment. And space is limited, and I need to be able to move around a little bit for this, right?
Well, so yes and no. So you're probably going to be limited on some games. So like games like Battlezone and Rigs and things where you're sitting and playing,
right? Your
couch has to be, they optimize like 5 to 6 feet away, but a lot of people have been saying that they're getting good tracking by being 3 to 4 feet away. Up here, we were playing probably about 5 feet away. I played a few different places upstairs. We were probably about 4 feet away. In my apartment, I'm about 5 feet away. And
now you can improve that slightly depending on your camera's position.
And you can adjust the camera.
Yeah, and I know that as somebody who has had PlayStation camera at my house for a very long time, and I just play from a computer desk. I'm never, more than 2 feet away from the desk itself. I bought a small tripod at Walmart. I can fake things a little bit by using the angle of the camera to improve that relationship. Because for me personally, I don't have a lot of room in my gaming setup.
Yeah.
Like I would have to move this to like the living room.
So really when it comes down to it, as long as it can see everything, it'll track you fine.
Right.
Now, standing games like Batman and stuff and Job Simulator where you're standing, they have the options, but it really just kind of takes you out of it if you're not standing and playing those. So standing games, if you're in a really small place, you probably might miss out on some of those experiences. So guys, we're going to kind of wrap this up. So as you can see, for our newer reviews, we're getting really in depth with these. We really want to give you well-informed decisions so you can make just an informed purchase. So, but now we have a scoring system. So the way we're doing our scoring system is we've all broken it up into categories, and we all 3 have scored it separately.
Right.
So we'll give you those, and then we'll give you the average Ronin 24 score. So my score that I gave the PlayStation VR is I give it 8.1 out of 10. So there's 10 possible points. I give it 8.1.
Now, after averaging out my score, I came to a 7.6.
Yep.
Gordy came in slightly lower due to maybe some comfort, some motion sickness issues, as well as being our other person who lives in that studio apartment. So space was possibly a factor.
And he comes in at a 7.2. Now, averaged altogether, Ronin 24 as a whole gives it, the PlayStation VR a 7.6 out of 10. Now,
that sounds negative.
When you guys, when you see scores, like if you go to IGN and you're like 7.6, you're like, oh, maybe I'll rent the game, But
exactly.
Let me preface this: this literally is the best piece of tech I've ever had in my possession, and it is a life-changing thing. Things will never be the same in terms of gaming. Now, this doesn't replace gaming. This doesn't replace your couch experiences with your monitor, your fight sticks, or whatever you're having. This is a supplement to it. Like these are different experiences.
So that's it. I mean, you're very much outlining it with the word experience.
Yeah.
You are experiencing this for the first time. You've played other video games. You are now actually experiencing it yourself. Yeah. And you might think like, well, that sounds a little dramatic. And I would just say it's not.
It's not.
Like you actually have to get into the headset. You have to sit down for a few minutes and start to experience this, because the first time that you try and throw a kick at something that's in a room with you because you have genuine fear, like you'll understand that there's a difference between that and a video game where you're sitting there sipping a beer, eating Doritos, and just like whatever.
And you're not always going to want to do it. Like I've had it now for a few days, and like I love it. I'm in love with it. I want to get in there all the time. But I also sometimes I want to sit down, fire up my Xbox, and just play some Gears of War.
Exactly.
So it's not going to replace gaming for you, but it's not a gimmick, guys. This is the real deal of what the future is going to be like in terms of technology. there's so many educational purposes, traveling the world, seeing things, going to the moon, doing the Titanic sinking in real time that's coming out, things you'll never be able to experience. Not just gaming, it's a fantastic experience. The 7.6 seems negative, but it's not. It's just new technology. This is the PS1 of PlayStation VR, so there's going to be so much room to grow, and it will grow into an 8, a 9, and a 10.
Right. Well, especially with all the competition. I mean, when you've got Oculus and you've got Vive and then you've got the HoloLens down the road, they're all going to do something that's going to start to try and separate themselves from the other. And in doing so, in the world of technology, they're all going to copycat along the way while trying to innovate. So for this being what it is that's delivered to, you know, your doorstep, like for me especially, like Batman was borderline emotional. I'm such a Batman fan. I always have been.
Same.
I played through all of the Rocksteady games, like to near completion on all of them. So for me to finally get to sit down and be the Bat is insane.
There's nothing like it. And, you know, we've given you a very detailed review, but we still can't replace the going and trying it yourself. So we encourage you, Best Buys have them on display. Go somewhere, try PlayStation VR, try Oculus Rift, try virtual reality, guys, because once you try it, you will believe and you'll understand where we're coming from.
Right.
But if you have questions, comments below. Our Twitters are here. Gordy's Twitter's there. You know, hit us up. We all have very different experiences, very different, varied opinions. So ask us, and be sure, you know, hit that subscribe. If you like this longer, more detailed format of reviews, we want to hear your feedback. What do you want us to change? What do you want us to kind of narrow in on? And please check us out on Patreon if you'd like more.
Absolutely.
Please support us there.
Yeah, that supports these gigantic purchases like this that we can bring to you guys at home before you're like, do I want to spend $500-600 on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wish I had somebody who I trust who would give me some details on it.
We're those guys. We're your friends. We're friends here. We're family.
We're here for you.
Yep. And like, subscribe. Thank you for joining us. We will see you soon. Out. Geek out.